order the Charter Township of Oxford Board of Trustees regular meeting for Wednesday, March the 8th at the early time of 5:30 p.m. We all rise and pay respects to the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Wright,
Here.
Curtis,
Here.
Knoll,
Here.
Ferrari,
Here.
Payne. Here. Colvin. Here. Charles.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Charles. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none. Item 5, closed session.
I'll make a motion to be in an open session, entertain a motion, and take a roll call vote. 2/3 majority needed. I call in the closed session for the following purposes. A, discussion of a confidential legal opinion regarding development agreements pursuant to MCL 15.268H and MCL 15.243L and G. B, discussion of a confidential legal opinion regarding conditional zoning under state law, Township zoning ordinance pursuant to MCL 15.268H and MCL 15.243L and G. And C, discussion of a confidential legal opinion because of the purchase of real property pursuant to PCL 15.268D.
Second. You have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second from Trustee Knoll, but I need a clarification. You said PCL, it should be MCL?
MCL, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Usually in the motion, you would state who is to be present in the closed session.
Oh, to include township board members.
How about our-
Megan? Pardon me?
Do you want, we want,
We want Brittany, we want Danielle, and we want Megan.
to include
So am I
And the
making?
recording secretary.
Okay.
include the recording secretary, our 2 township
Why
attorneys,
don't you
and
answer?
executive assistant Danielle Smith.
I have a motion from Treasurer Ferrari and a second from Trustee Knoll. Discussion?
Just a quick question. We have a gentleman here from the school board. Should he stay or is that important?
He has to leave.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, roll call.
Trustee Colvin.
The camera guy has to leave too.
If you will, once the motion's
Yep.
done.
Okay.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Knoll.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Okay, so now we move into closed session, turning off the
Give me a second to
television.
put the sign. Yes.
did say that.
All right, just want to make sure.
You want to use my laptop?
Do you want, if you want to flip it, or I can?
Just tell them to
Okay.
flip it.
All right, all right.
Because we don't want to screw it up.
You're in charge then, Clerk Wright.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
Beamer McCord takes over.
item number 6, Township Board Workshop, Board Etiquette and Procedural Rules. Like I stated previously, Brittany's been watching our board and only improvements. We as a board function fast, fair, and friendly. They're not a raucous board like some communities where they fight amongst themselves. This board is very respectable of each other's time, but there's always room for improvement. So with that, Brittany's made some observations, and she's gonna go through them with us.
Yeah. So I'd like to start out by saying no one's in trouble. You guys
That's
all
what I
generally
said.
do a great job. A lot of this will be a refresher for you, to be honest, because you are doing things right, which is great. My presentation focuses on meeting decorum, which is really governed by 2 things, your bylaws and then Robert's Rules of Order. So we'll go through that quickly. I also focus on motions, how to pass them, how to amend them, ex-party contact, which is becoming an increasing issue, especially in the digital era. And then, of course, just a refresher of the Open Meetings Act, which is always good for a public board, right? So with that, I always start with a little video to show you why meeting decorum and meeting procedures matter.
While this is loading up, will we have a copy of this?
Yes, and I believe that the clerk did send out a copy to everyone. If you don't have it, I can send it to you. And actually, I have copies that I brought so you guys can take notes.
Just click everything on. Just put it back out up there. Slideshow. There.
Oh, well, thank you.
We can skip this part if we can't figure it out. You guys won't be quizzed on your technological savviness today.
Okay, let's just go ahead.
We'll look through this pretty quick because I want to get you guys in your open session.
Yes. So go to the next slide.
Okay, so these are just my quick tips for a successful public meeting. The most important thing I tell every board is the chair controls the meeting. You guys actually do a great job of this. You're lucky to have a very strong supervisor who who does a good job recognizing and giving board members the floor, but also controlling the cadence and the agenda and the tone of the meeting. I always say review your bylaws at least once a year. Make sure you're familiar with them. Those govern your meeting procedure. If you're ever in doubt, revert to Robert's Rules of Procedure. We'll get into why you don't have to be perfect on your procedure later in this presentation, so don't put too much pressure on yourself if you ever aren't perfect in line with Robert's Rules. And we'll also go over a few quick of the most important rules under that very large 300-page book, which if any of you guys ever have some extra time in your life, it's a great read.
But this board voted, and it wasn't this specific board, but the township board voted years and years ago that we do not operate under Robert's rules.
I have boards that do so.
Okay.
And what they usually find is they generally follow a loose version of Robert's Rules. You're never gonna, if you're ever in court over a procedural issue, they're never gonna say your motion's overturned because you didn't follow Robert's Rules to a T.
Okay.
But boards like it because it keeps your meeting moving, it keeps things in a certain order. But I always say adopt a loose version that works for your board.
Okay.
So just know by not following it, you're not breaking the law.
Okay.
So always maintain control and decorum. This is usually the responsibility of the chair, but all members should assist. We'll talk a little bit about that and how to handle public comment when you have unruly members of the public here and how to deal with that. Follow appropriate procedures for passage of motions and amendments. Board members should refrain from commenting during public comment. We'll talk about this a little more too. But there shouldn't be back and forth during public comment. Your bylaws govern your public comment. Everyone's entitled, members of the public are entitled to stand up here. They get your 3 minutes under your bylaws. Board members should not be answering questions at that time. If the board wants to answer those questions, you can write them down, and at the close of the public hearing or at another appropriate time during the meeting, you can address those comments. When meetings can really get out of control is when you're having that back and forth with constituents. Maybe they're getting more time than other members of the public. Maybe they feel, other members of the public feel, well, you answered their question but not mine. That's why it's really good to treat everyone the same as much as you can. So that's why I say any board or chair response should be after public comment is closed.
Do you have a
So
question,
next.
Trustee Charles?
You look
So
concerned.
recapitulating what I think I'm here. So during public comment, basically, there is no feedback from the board. How about from the supervisor?
There generally shouldn't be, no. It's appropriate after you close public comment, but the biggest thing that you're ever gonna get challenged on in public comment is that you gave more time to the floor to someone than another person, or you treated someone differently than you treated another person during
Or
public
you made
comment.
a decision that was not on the agenda and you violated the Open Meetings Act?
Generally, I wouldn't say that's a strong basis for an Open Meetings Act violation, but it's not best practice.
Right. Okay.
All right, next slide.
Next slide.
All right, so this is what the Attorney General has said on public comment rules. We don't have a lot of strong case law because luckily for you, public boards don't get sued a whole lot over public comment. So the types of things that boards and commission can address usually through their bylaws, are the length of time that members of the public may address the board. Again, you set yours at 3 minutes. A designation of the time for public participation during a certain part of the agenda. Public comment takes place when it's on your agenda, not outside of that time period. What you cannot do is place conditions on attendance of members of the public at an open meeting by requiring they provide you with information like their name and address. You can require they give their name for public comment, but you can't say you can't attend this meeting because you haven't given us your name and address. It's a violation of the OMA.
So if Brittany's coming up to talk during public comment, if I said, would you state your name and address, what would you say?
Brittany Ellis, 12311 Wincliff Drive.
What if you didn't want to give your address?
Then you can say, I can say I'm not gonna give my address, but you can say we require that as our bylaws as part of our, as a requirement for public comment. What you can't do is say, get out of here, leave, you can't attend our meeting.
So we have to review our bylaws to make sure that's in there, if we want that in there. Okay, thank
You
you.
can allow anonymous comment if you want, that's completely up to the board. So you cannot limit the subject or issues that the speaker wants to address during public comment. You can't prevent a person from talking about a confidential or closed session topic. So if we go into closed session and they want to ask the board questions about it, again, you're not required to answer them and you shouldn't be answering them during public comment. But you can't prevent them from asking questions and bringing it up. Again, you can't require as a condition of attendance that they register or provide their name or any other information. So this is, I think you're all familiar with this board does a great job of passage of motions. But as you know, all board members have the right to make motions during a meeting, anytime no other business is pending. Granted, the chair recognizes the member first. The member states the motion, you have to have a second. The members then debate the motion. The chair restates the motion, and that's the time when the members vote. The chair then announces the result. This part, amending a motion, is where boards sometimes get in trouble because they don't realize that they need to actually vote on the amendment of the motion before they move on to vote on the final motion they want to vote on. So to amend a motion, the board member makes the motion. I move to amend the motion on the floor. That also requires a second. After the motion to amend is seconded, a majority vote is needed to decide whether the amendment is accepted, and then a vote is taken on the amended motion. Again, that's after you already took a motion on the first motion that you had on the floor.
Is everybody clear on that one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, question?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Um,
What did they make you chair?
Does before the motion is, the first motion unamended is passed first and then the amendment is passed, or and then you pass the amended motion, so three?
So I don't want to say passed. So you vote on the first motion. Usually you're going to strike it down because you know you're going to do an amendment.
Okay.
But what a lot of boards miss is they know from their discussion that they don't like the motion on the floor, so they just skip and go to the vote on the amended motion. and they miss voting on the original motion on the floor. You always need to vote on the original motion that's before you on the floor before you place another motion on the floor.
Okay.
I'm going to be redundant, Nate.
Yes,
So this comes up, we would vote it down in order to add the amendment?
Correct. Unless for some reason there's the votes to pass the original motion on the floor, you never know.
Okay, I just want to make sure because it comes up frequently.
well, and I know our recording secretary's been wonderful about letting us know when we break that rule.
Well, may I?
Yes,
A lot of times, I'm just gonna use, Joe makes a motion, John seconds it. And then Curtis says, well, I want you to amend your motion to say this. And then you guys get all convoluted.
we
And
need to stop.
what Curtis and I have both said is to make it cleaner, vote that first motion down, then start back from scratch. Because when you have amended motions, if you've gone back and read the minutes, you've got a vote on your amendment, then you're voting on the original one, but that vote on the original one is further down in the minutes. It's just cleaner to vote it down.
Vote it down, get rid of it.
Make a new one.
Yes, trustee Noel.
Might I ask Danielle to open that door, because I think we have a coalition on, or a group of.
Yes, you can ask her. Thank you.
One motion is vote down.
Okay, next.
Okay, so this is the good news. Anytime you have a motion, generally, if you're ever challenged on a motion, it's over the interpretation of the motion, it's not over the procedure. So if you have a motion that's passed in violation of the township's adopted procedures, it's likely to be upheld by a court. You're not likely to have a motion overturned because you screwed up your procedure and you put 8 amendments up and you didn't vote on any of them. They'll look at the intent of the motion. So that's why I always stress writing really clear, strong motions expressing the intent of the board, because what doesn't go into the court record is the whole discussion the board had about the motion. We'll be arguing over just the language of the motion. So everything you're approving needs to be in that motion.
Treasurer Ferrari.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. One of my things I've always said is, our job as any board is leave a good legacy. Nothing is tougher when you look at your minutes and say, I make a motion to have Joe do this. Who's Joe and what's this? You know, our job as a board is so they can always, a future board can choose to redo it. At least I'll know what we had in mind.
Make your attorney's life easier too when I have to go defend who Joe is and why he did it. So,
Okay, any questions? Moving on.
okay, so now we're getting into open meetings. The intent of the act is to strengthen the right of all Michigan citizens to know what goes on in government by requiring public bodies to conduct nearly all business at open meetings. We want to be open and transparent government, right? We want the public to know what we're doing. We want to do the right thing. That's the intent of the Open Meetings Act.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, so this is when a meeting is subject to the Open Meetings Act. So anytime a public body, this includes a committee, a subcommittee, meets with a quorum present to deliberate or render a decision on something on which a vote by the public body is required and by which a public body effectuates or formulates public policy. The OMA defines decision to mean a determination, action, vote, or disposition upon a motion, proposal, recommendation, resolution, order, ordinance, bill, or measure on which a vote by members of a public body is required and by which a public body effectuates or formulates public policy. All that means is don't have a majority of your board who is empowered to make decisions, having discussions towards a decision on an item they're going to take a vote on outside of a public meeting.
Okay, Curtis, Jack, and Joe are sitting in the office. John walks in, and we make a decision. What are we doing?
Violating the Open Meetings Act.
If I call John and ask him a question about a meeting, not to make a decision on it, am I violating the Open
Absolutely
Meetings
not.
Act? If we all meet at 925 Legacy and it's a open house, are we violating an Open Meetings Act by us all being in the same room?
As long as you're not talking about township business that you're going to be voting on, no.
The reason for an Open Meetings Act is not to discuss and make decisions behind the public's back. Yeah, let me get trustee Charles first. Go ahead.
Just going back to this, the OMA and Jack's example. So if we have a committee meeting, for example, and somebody wants to observe, can they observe as a member of the public without being part of the discussion?
Yes.
Okay, and can they be part of the discussion without voting? I'm explaining here there a little bit.
Let me back up. You're asking if a board member can be part of the discussion without voting when
Yes.
you, I would say, actually, let me back up. Anytime you have a quorum present for a subcommittee and you haven't noticed it as a public meeting, I think that you're on shaky grounds.
You're on shaky ground, meaning we're not really sure. Okay.
Meaning that don't do it.
But she says shaky ground, don't go there.
I'm trying
We-
to hold an attorney to the
We
thing.
try to do that all the time, because, like, for example, the ARPA committee meets, and there's 3 members of the team, and all of a sudden the 4th walks in and says, I want this. Well, that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And that's what we're trying to prevent. We do a good job of preventing that. Joe, you had a question?
Following that up, like, we have safety path. There's 3 board members on there. If let's say we need to ask input from Supervisor Curtis, one of us steps out, that's still okay, correct?
That's okay, and Supervisor Curtis would also be empowered to, put forth what his position is on an issue before that subcommittee,
But
but
there's
not
only 3 of
appear
them, 2 of
to
them there.
deliberate, yes,
But then when he leaves, a 3rd member can come back in.
yes.
Okay, that's how we do it now.
Yes, sir.
Just so I get into my, because I have a meeting coming up kind of along this lines with the DDA board. So we have a committee meeting, one of the board members wants to join, in which case then it becomes a quorum. That person can observe but can't participate. Is that a good interpretation without being on shaky ground?
So I would need to know the facts, I'd need to know a
Well,
little bit more
if
information.
the 4th person attends, and that creates a quorum, are they
Yeah.
allowed to talk or just watch?
They can observe the meeting. I wouldn't recommend that I deliberate, discuss with the board any sort of matter that they're gonna vote on.
Okay, that's what I wanted to, thank you. That's,
Any other questions? Next.
But I wouldn't recommend doing it, it's just better, you don't.
No, I don't know, because like I said, it's coming up pretty soon, and then one of the
Yeah.
committees I'm on, and I want to make sure we follow these rules.
You know, I definitely advise being conscientious and conservative when it comes to Open Meetings Act and
Sure.
not placing yourself in a position where you have 4 board members in the room and you could be accused of an Open Meetings Act
We
violation.
have 11 minutes left. Trustee Noel.
We have ORC meetings. We cover large blocks of data. We have a person that is an alternate. The alternate comes in to keep abreast, to make decisions at the next meeting they may be a part of. Can that person sit in the meeting and not say anything?
So is that alternate a member of your township board?
Planning commission, be a planning commission.
We have a quorum of the planning commission.
That would be a quorum of your planning commission.
Thank you.
They can read the minutes.
Yes. Thank you. Any other questions? Moving on.
I think we missed one. So this has to do with ex-party contact. What that means is making decisions outside of public township board meetings. I mean, the reason why we have the Open Meetings Act, the reason why we have notice requirements under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, the Planning Enabling Act, and the Charter Township Act, is to notice the public of what the township board will be meeting on, and to allow them to be able to attend and comment and participate in our public discourse. So that's why ex-party contact is generally frowned upon. Why we're seeing this more and more, which I just want to touch on briefly, is social media, and this board does not have this issue, but improper social media contact where there may be a quorum of board members discussing something on Facebook, the public's weighing in. You violated the Open Meetings Act because now you're excluding certain sectors of the public, i.e. those who aren't privy to that Facebook discussion to participate. You're excluding your fellow board members from participating. If that ever happens, the way to correct it, the best way to remedy it is to disclose the improper contact to your board and disclose it in a public meeting so that everyone's aware of what information is out there when deliberating towards a decision.
This is when you're on Facebook, social media, Twitter, all this, and you chime in with an opinion about how something should be done, and all of a sudden another member is out there chimes in. You don't know if all those members are creating a quorum. And what we've always said is, stay off of it. You know, don't give your opinion. You want to jump up there and strangle somebody sometimes for things they say and do, but the best thing to do is talk about it in an open meeting.
I agree
Next.
with all. Alright, so now I just want to talk a little bit about closed session. There are times where it's appropriate to go into a closed session for a board to discuss certain matters. Those matters are prescribed by statute. Those reasons are to consider the dismissal, suspension, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against, or to consider a periodic personnel evaluation of a public officer, employee, or staff member, but only if the named person requests a closed hearing. That means the township board cannot request a closed hearing, it has to be requested by that person. They can enter for strategy and negotiation sessions connected with negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement. They can to consider purchase or lease of real property up to the time an option to purchase or lease that real property is obtained. To consult with your attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with specific pending litigation. To review and consider the contents of an application for employment or appointment to a public office if the candidate requests that application remain confidential. And finally, the most common reason boards usually go into closed session. This is actually given to you under the Freedom of Information Act, not the Open Meetings Act, but to discuss a written legal opinion or memorandum with the township attorney to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute. So you cannot go into closed session for any other reason. These are the reasons you can go into closed.
Any questions? Next.
So I just want to talk about procedures to go into closed session. You can't have a closed session separate from an open meeting. Always has to be part of your open meeting agenda. You need 2/3 roll call vote, which we discussed today. You need to state the purpose or purposes for calling the closed session. I always recommend actually citing the law under which we're going into closed session. Motion should always be made to end the closed session with the majority vote needed for approval to go into the open session. And then when the board has concluded its closed session, the open meeting minutes should state the time the public body reconvened in open session, and any votes on matters, this is the biggest one, any votes on matters discussed in the closed session must occur in an open meeting, i.e. you cannot pass motions in closed session.
Any questions? Next slide.
Okay, so this is my final slide that I close with. Use of email or other electronic communications during an open meeting. Basically the gist of this is don't email each other in an open meeting about matters on the agenda, or text each other, or instant message each other. Talk about it in open. Otherwise you could have a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And that's it.
And that's it. Are there any questions for Attorney Ellis? Seeing none, thank you very much, Brittany.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Thank you for the Township Board Workshop. Item number 7, approval of the consent agenda. Treasurer Ferrari.
I move to approve the consent agenda to include approval of the regular Township Board meeting minutes, February 8th, 2023, approval of the regular bills to March 3rd, 2023, approval of the consultant bills to March 3rd, 2023, approval of committee representative reports for March 8th, 2023, approval of the development agreement with Great Lakes Taco LLC, authorize supervisor to execute the same, and approve the grants and donations obtained before.
Second. Does everybody understand what was left off the consent agenda? Any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Golden,
Yes.
trustee King,
Yes.
trustee Noel,
Yes.
trustee Ferrari,
Yes.
supervisor Curtis,
No.
clerk White, no, and trustee Charles. Yes.
Okay, we will address the other 3 in the consent agenda motion at the items left off.
Can I ask everybody to make sure that you're speaking into your mic? Thank you.
Those 3 items were removed from the consent agenda. We'll be addressing them in item 14. Okay.
Let me take care of that. I move to approve the consent agenda to include approval of the development agreement with Frequency Wellness and authorize supervisor to execute the same. Approval of the development agreement with Lifted Industrial Partners 2 LLC, authorize supervisor to execute the same. Approval of the development agreement with Curative LLC, Wish Investments LLC, and authorize supervisor to execute the same.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Yes, trustee Colvin.
This is a new motion to add this to the consent agenda.
Right,
This one
we're
under
doing
six.
number 14
Okay.
and number,
Well, I don't think that's really happening. He's just making a second motion under approval of the consent agenda.
okay. Roll call?
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Farrar.
No.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Okay. We have no items for removal. Number 8, public comments on items that are not on the agenda. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on any item that's not on the agenda? Step up, state your name, please. You have 3 minutes to speak, and we will listen.
Good evening, Mary Ann Keynes, resident of the Stony Lake Village condos here in Waterstone, Oxford Township. And I'd like to follow up on an item from 2022. I was here speaking before you about the Lapeer Road traffic study. It was approved by the Board of Township, and the funds associated for the expense of doing that was approved. And I had not heard anything on follow-up whether that traffic study has indeed been completed, or if it's going to be done this year, and at what time frame, and when will the results be published. My concern at that time, I was president of the Stony Lake Village Condo Association, and at that time I had 3 concerns for the traffic study. One was the reduction of the speed from Ray Road on Lapeer Road from 55, which it is currently down to 40, and so then it could transition and reduce down to 30 at the village limit. So instead of now being 55, then down to 40 by Coney, and then down to 30 at the village limit. The second issue I had was at the Market Street traffic light, if that could be turned into a left turn capability for both the east side and the west side. There is room to put a left turn lane on both sides. It would allow some traffic reduction on Stony Lake Drive, because people who want to go to Meyer and to the high school would have left turn capability at that traffic light. And thirdly, it was to kind of beef up, if you will, the turnaround in front of the Leo's Coney Island little strip mall there, especially in the winter months when snow is built up there. That turnaround is very dangerous for someone wanting to come out from Lapeer, from the Leo's Coney Island, to make a left, traveling north on Lapeer. Heaven forbid if the car you feel is going to move forward and it doesn't, and you're stuck in traffic there. So those were the 3 concerns I had about the traffic study. There was also another resident of Oxford Township. She had responded in correspondence along with the traffic study, and her concerns were by Drainer. So it was supposed to go from Ray Road all the way to Drainer on Lapeer Road, but I can't address her concerns, but you would have that correspondence on file. So I just wanted to bring that up because I wasn't sure if that study had been done, and if so, what the results were, and if not, when can we see that being done here in 2023 as we approach the spring, hopefully we're going to approach the spring season very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the board that or public would like to speak at this time on items not on the agenda? Seeing none. Item number 9, first reading.
There's a gentleman.
Pardon me?
Is there somebody just, I thought he was getting up, I'm sorry.
False alarm.
False alarm.
Okay, thank you. Item 9A, first reading zoning ordinance 67A.030, text amendments. John, did you want to address any of this for us, please?
This is a very large package. I'll do my best. If I need some help, I'll look at Megan, but there are 4 major areas that we worked on. On page 88 in this is a development agreement for the medical part of, and then there's section page 280, the PUD for the commercials. That's where you saw all the matrices. On page 259 in the article, there was regards to home occupancy. And then on one of the pages of page 261, we talked about addresses when we're redoing home addresses, when we are redoing our homes when we get a building permit.
Okay, any questions, board members? Treasurer Ferrari?
I move to set a second reading and possible adoption of amendments to the Charter Township of Oxford zoning ordinance, 67A, to be considered at the Charter Township of Oxford Board of Trustees, April 12, 2023, regular meeting.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Colvin. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call?
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes.
Item 10A. Chief Majestic, you want to come up and tell us what 10A is about?
Good evening, Board. Yes. As you know from the packet, we have found what we believe a well-qualified candidate to fill the position of Assistant Chief. And I respectfully request your acceptance of this candidate for the position.
Are there any questions of the chief? Yes, Treasurer Ferrari.
Curtis, you said we'd do some changes to the agreement.
That's the contract that's next. Any questions? Roll call?
Yeah. You need a motion first.
That's why I asked about the contract.
Oh,
We had to do changes
that's
to
right.
it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Chris, didn't we just have some changes in here?
Yeah, the Chief Majestic and I had some conversations along with Supervisor Curtis, and the changes have been made and forwarded to you in an email yesterday. So you do have an updated agreement to propose for.
The bulk of the changes made were, we found typographical errors and just some grammatical, actually more than anything. But there was no change of content to what you had already received.
I move to approve the employment agreement between Randy Vesper and the Charter Township of Oxford to be employed as a full-time Assistant Chief of the Oxford Fire Department as presented. Further, Chief Matthew Majestic, Supervisor Jack Curtis, authorized to sign the employment agreement between Randy Vesper and the Charter Township of Oxford.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Payne. Are there any questions? Before we vote on this, right after this vote, we're going to have to take a few minutes and get a few pictures because it takes a while. I want to get the ladies and the gentlemen back to work in the back of the room.
Me too.
All right, roll call.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
And Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Motion's passed. Item 10B, swearing in of Assistant Fire Chief Randy Vesper. I don't know how you want to do this. I make a terrible background.
Good. The size of us, nobody's going to see
Put the
anyhow.
big guy in front of me.
Ask you to raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Randy Vesper,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will
do solemnly swear and affirm that I will
support the Constitution of the United States
support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Assistant Fire Chief
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Assistant Fire Chief
in and for the Township of Oxford, County of Oakland, according to the best of my ability. In and for the Township of Oxford,
in and for the Township of Oxford,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
Okay. I know what we do is we want to get a few pictures. We have Darren and CJ. I don't know who wants to come up and get their picture, but if anybody needs a break, now's the best time to get it done. We'll take 10 minutes and get this handled.
Hey, how are you?
Don't drink from big.
Danielle?
Yeah. Yeah.
It looks like it. Very uncommon. Weather started to get nice. They're starting to flood in.
Good recess.
Thank you, Mort.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody's here? Okay. Item 11. Oh, wait. Last one.
I'll go ahead.
All right, thank you. Item 11, Sharp Engineering Report. It was in our packet. Is there any questions for Engineer Sharp? We'll have him come up. Seeing none. Item 12, unfinished business. American Rescue Plan Act update and recommendation. Clerk Wright?
Yes, we met on the 22nd of February, that's been our last meeting, and we discussed a lot of issues. As you recall, we narrowed down the list at this meeting to 5 items. From that list, we reduced it even further because from our Water and Sewer Committee, we decided that we were not going to paint fire hydrants. So that's been removed from the list. But as you see the bullet pointed items on there, I can go to the audience as well. Give you a little bit of idea. Our committee is going to recommend the board approve $25,000 of ARPA funding for cemetery improvements, which includes the wall restorations that's sorely needed. Mount Pleasant Cemetery, we're looking to put a new sign up and also do some further tree removals in the actual cemetery. So if we get that approval, we'll proceed on to get those items completed depending on what the costs come back at. Also, the fire radios that were approved and paid for by the fire department through the ARPA funding has been completed. So what the committee is recommending also is that the remaining funds, as you see there, $10,405.50, be moved down to the fire station number 3 project. And the reason for that is later on our agenda, there's a bid-in for a well to be placed at fire station number 3. And if those funds are approved, there'll be enough ARPA funding to pay for that wall, considering one of the 2 low bids are approved. Previously mentioned the fire hydrant painting. Welcome to Oxford signs wasn't on the list and it still is. We didn't discuss it because we didn't have a formal sign committee from the board to proceed on. So until that happens, we're going to just leave that on the list and wait to see if the Township Board wants to approve a committee for signs at a future meeting. We're anticipating recommendations from the Capital Improvement Committee, and as you see in your report packet tonight, there is a recommendation from the Capital Improvement Committee, but it's not necessarily for ARPA funding as of right now. We are recommending fire ventilators as discussed at the meeting last month, and as I indicated as well, the low bid for the well is a little over $41,000 between the 2 bids. If that's approved, then one of the 2 of those can be funded through ARPA if the board so chooses. We also received 2 proposals from the Oxford Township Library. One was for generators, I believe, and the other one was for putting, I guess I'll call it pocket libraries in certain areas of the township. Those were received after we met, so we have not considered those items as of today. So the committee, next time they meet, they'll put that on consideration with no guarantees. Also, there's a breakdown of the funding. As of this meeting, there's $923,364.94 remaining in the ARPA funds because we have not recommended allocation for a few months. So with that, I'll make a motion to allocate $25,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for cemetery maintenance improvements for the purpose of tree removal, wall restoration, and installing a new sign at Mount Pleasant Cemetery, and to assign the remaining $10,405.50 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for fire radios to the fire station number 3 project.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Clerk Wright. I have a second by Trustee Charles. Are there any questions? Clerk Wright.
I don't know if Trustee Payne or Trustee Knoll have any further comment.
No other questions? Roll call.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Charles.
Yes.
And Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Okay, item 12, single waste hauler update, trustee Noel.
Thank you. Board, in your package, you'll see a letter that discusses this. The committee consists of myself, Margie Payne, and Curtis Wright. We're currently working with 3 companies that have responded to our RFP, GFL, Priority Waste, and Waste Management. We have a confidential proposal review meeting coming up tomorrow, Friday, to discuss the details of those proposals. The next board meeting on April 12th is where we'll be discussing candidate. We are also working on a one-page flyer to go out, and we're also working with an ordinance with legal in regards to managing this within the township.
Are there any questions on single hauler? We're gonna say it 3 times. Our next board meeting will be April 12th, and that's gonna be held at the Lake Point Church on Drainer Road, because we do anticipate a few more people than what we can fit in this room. So any questions about the single waste hauler and what it'll consist of, we can have that open meeting there with all the residents that we anticipate. Okay? Thank you, John. Item 12C, Paint Lake Canal Assessment District Request, Resolution number 1. Clerk Wright?
This is a special assessment district for Paint Lake. It's formerly known as Swell Lake, that's been changed. And what it is, it's a 20 parcel SAD to eradicate or suppress aquatic weeds in the Paint Lake Canal. I'll pull up a picture for you here to give you an idea of what the area looks like. But we've had Engineer Sharp review the proposal. It meets the requirements, in his opinion, of meeting the minimum land requirements. Here's a picture of what the SAD will look like to eradicate the weeds inside the line here. The proposal now is to assess the properties based on front footage. So there's what the proposal or the SAD will be allocated for these properties. This is the second step in a four meeting process. The expected approval date that goes all the way through will be in the June meeting. We have to have 2 public hearings on it. We have to send letters to the residents, and we have to approve 4 resolutions in that process. There's a contract that the township has to sign on that SAD as well, right here, Rockaway. There's the 10-year SAD proposed. There's the annual fees that are going to be charged against the properties based upon front footage. So if there's any further questions, feel free to ask.
Go ahead, trustee Charles.
I believe there's a change in state legislation that you can also do it by parcel as opposed to by footage. Not that it interferes with this. Just as an FYI.
I'll wait for that change.
Well, it gives you a choice,
Yeah.
footage or by parcel. That was, I think, last, end of the summer, I believe it came out.
Treasurer Ferrari?
I move to approve the resolution of tentative declaration of intention to implement an aquatic weed control special assessment district program for Paint Lake Canal, and Supervisor Jack Curtis is authorized to sign the Paint Lake Canal Special Assessment District Agreement for aquatic weed control on behalf of the Charter Township of Oxford, and to schedule a public hearing for the Oxford Township Board of Trustees regular meeting on Wednesday, April 12, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. or soon thereafter, to hear and consider any objections submitted by any interested persons with respect to the Paint Lake Canal Special Assessment District petition, the Special Assessment District program, and the assessing of the cost thereof for the Special Assessment District.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Clerk Wright. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
And Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carried. 13A, new business. Conditional rezoning of parcel 04-21-200-002 and parcel 04-21-200-005. How do we want to address this? Brittany, do you want to come on up and
Sure.
inform us of what our findings are?
So as the board knows, you received new conditions from the developer offered. Under your zoning ordinance, the appropriate procedure is for the board to send those conditions to the planning commission to make a recommendation on the new conditions before it comes back to the board for a consideration.
Treasurer Ferrari.
I move to refer the conditional rezoning application requesting a rezone from C1 local commercial to RM multiple family for parcel numbers 04-21-200-002, 04-21-200-005, back to the Oxford Township Planning Commission for recommendation of approval or denial to the Township Board on the conditional rezoning.
Second. I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see your hand up.
You beat me to the punch again. Does this open up everything to the planning commission, or just adding or approving these new conditions? Does it start with a clean slate?
So, go ahead, Supervisor.
Go ahead.
The planning commission can make a recommendation on the other conditions as well that have already been offered, but there have been additional conditions offered which they will weigh in on.
But can they just start from scratch?
They can pass a new motion, yes, to make a recommendation of approval or denial to the Board of Trustees.
Okay. Roll call.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Okay, item 13B, Safety Path Master Plan Approval. Treasurer Ferrari.
Board members, the Safety Path Committee has been working on revise our project master plan list. You take a look, got it right in front of you for our different priorities. We've kind of broken it into 13 different segments. Any questions from the board members of the committee?
I have one. Even though these are our priorities, we will still do some that can be done where your easements are ascertained. You're not just waiting for priority number one.
No, so this is our best case scenario.
Okay, but if the easements are gotten and there's a piece you can do, we're gonna move forward, recommend moving forward.
The committee will take a look at that.
Greg, one other item that was added to this master plan that wasn't before is, you'll see proposed safety paths. So the committee opened up the safety path construction to a majority of the township areas, so that if there's a development that does go in, say, in the northern end of the township, it compels the township either to accept cash in lieu or require the safety path to go in. So it just broadened the requirements of development.
Do we need I'm sorry, Trustee Payne?
I would say, in regards to you asking if we are going to do the ones that we can do, there are some that don't make sense to do at this point, so we wouldn't. You know, I mean, just because
right.
it can be done and we can get the easements, doesn't mean we're going to. I mean, the one on Lakeville Road has Pollyant Trail right across the street, so it's less reasonable to do that one versus others. And the one on Bar Road is had nothing connecting it.
Okay, new members of the committee, go ahead, Clerk Wright.
Just come to my mind, priority number 5, which is right in front of Meyer. Treasurer Ferrari was instrumental in, I believe, getting that easement secured from Meyer today. So with that, once the safety path is completed on Ray Road, and we're going to probably work on getting an easement from Chase Bank, that will complete that loop from Oxford Road to Ray Road back into the village. So that's what we're working on as well, to try to get back completed. So it's a big major step right now.
Any other questions? Treasurer Ferrari?
I move to approve the Charter Township of Oxford Safety Path Master Plan and revised priority listing for the Oxford Township Safety Path System as recommended by the Safety Path Committee Authorize Sharp Engineering to create two 24 by 36 foam back master plan maps and 20 11 by 17 maps. The cost of the maps to be expensed to account number 297-852-821.000, Safety Path Fund Engineering Fees.
Second. I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Any questions? Roll call?
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Supervisor Curtis.
No.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
And Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. 13C, confirmation of fire alarm replacement cost for township building. Board members, the last meeting, I informed you that we had a condition with our fire panel. We've had it for the past 9 years. And currently, we had to act and replace our fire alarm system. I had an estimate of $14,359.77, and that's what the estimate came in, and the work was done for that money. So I move to approve the estimate dated February 10th, 2023 from Thumb Alarm Systems Incorporated in the amount of $14,359.77. This $14,359.77 amount to be expensed to account 101-265-9676.000 additions and improvements.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a motion by Supervisor Curtis. I'm going to give that second to Trustee Charles. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
And Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Okay,
You get an easy motion.
yeah. Item 13D, resolution approving the public transit agreement between Oakland County and North Oakland Transportation Authority. We have members from NODA and members from the county. If you'd like to come up to the podium and explain what we're doing. We haven't heard from Lynn in a while.
Good evening, everyone. Lynn Gromaski, Director of NODA. And the contract that you have in front of you is between NODA. It's a transit agreement between NODA and Oakland County, and it's due to the transit millage that passed last November of 2022. That was a 0.95 mils for 10 years, and it replaced the pre-existing NODA millage of 0.25. The contract that you have is a 3-year agreement with a 1-year funding mechanism where the Oakland County will pay NODA $2,847,505 for 1 year to maintain our existing services. We currently had 17 routes that NODA was running. This also will pay for 3 additional routes for NODA, just NODA only, so we'll go to 20 routes. And then it also is 3 expansion routes. And those expansion routes will go into Brandon Township, potentially, and Independence is what we're thinking of, although that's still to be determined. Those are the areas they're looking at. It will also pay for our parking lot to be redone as well. So we need an expansion of our parking lot. And I'm here for any questions.
Okay, with Lynn is our old friend,
Brett.
Mr. Razigan. Just want you to know in case there's any question. Do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, Treasurer Ferrari?
Then this makes you whole, correct?
It does.
There's no cuts or, lacking of employees or services, nothing.
No, and actually, we increased our wages for all of our drivers so that we're consistent. The 4 providers that Oakland County named in the ballot was NODA, WODA, which is the West Oakland Transit, OPC, which is Rochester Hills, and SMART. So those are the 4 providers. And they really wanted, it's been great working with the county. They really want to make sure that we are equitable between especially the 3 smaller providers, we have a decent wage and we have good benefits. So we've raised our driver wages up to $20 an hour from $16.50 roughly. and offering benefits packages, so that's included in that as well.
Trustee Charles.
So it's
Go
a
ahead.
3-year contract, but a 1-year guarantee?
Right.
What
Just-
sense does that make?
I think it's a first year, they're not sure what's gonna happen. This also doesn't include vehicles to be purchased, which are on order. We ordered 10 vehicles, which isn't gonna come in until the end of the summer. But I think they wanna see how this plays out and then make adjustments in the budget as we go forward. They're foreseeing to have an adjustment of the budget maybe halfway through, and then we'll have to, as we have actual data coming in from the providers to see what the expenses are, as we provide that information, I assume we'll take that and then we'll build the budget for next year. Do you have anything to add to that?
Just the bus purchases, we think probably mid-year we'll amend the budget to contribute more money to purchases, to vehicle purchases.
Sir?
I still don't, but here again, it's a 1-year or 3-year contract, but 1-year budget? I don't,
There's
some disharmony there for me.
Yeah, we started with a 1-year contract, 1-year budget, and in discussions with the attorneys representing the agencies, we understood that that was too confining. The contract was extended to 3 years with a 1-year funding element, and we review that annually, the scope of services and the funding.
Clerk Wright.
Yeah, the existing NODA contract, will that stay in place between the NODA the municipality? Does that have to be renewed?
The intergovernmental agreement, is that
Yes.
what you mean, between the communities, that will still stay in place? And everything will stay the same, so there will be no changes. It's part of the resolution, they made, we put it in there that there will be no changes to the NODA board. If we were to make an expansion into other areas, it won't change our makeup of the NODA board. It'll stay the same.
And then one other thing, I was trying to find it in here, and I don't think I could, but I thought I read in here that you have to provide an audit report every quarter.
It's the SMART report that we provide to SMART anyways, and so it's not an actual audit. They actually
Okay.
changed that. It was actually just a quarterly financial report that we have to provide to SMART, and then just the annual audit.
Treasurer Ferrari.
I move to approve the resolution to approve the public transportation agreement between the Charter Township of Oxford, Village of Oxford, Charter Township of Orion, the Village of Lake Orion, Township of Addison, Village of Leonard, North Oakland Transportation Authority, and Oakland County for the term and conditions as set forth therein, and authorize the Township Supervisor, Executive Director of the North Oakland Transportation Authority to execute same.
Second?
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel for discussion, because I saw Trustee Payne's hand go up.
Oh, I was just gonna make a clarification, or just make a statement. This also says that we get to, that 6 communities maintain ownership of their current assets.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
We don't have to
We-
show them.
We do not.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes, and Trustee Charles.
No.
Okay. Motion carried. When do you need that signed? I know you have another community.
Next Monday is
Next
the
Monday,
Village of
so
Lake Orion.
I'll leave it on my desk, or I'll give it to me now, or
I don't have it with me.
just
so-
call me and I'll come over.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll take a ride.
Item 13E, credit card policy. Board members, it was a while back, Clerk Wright and I looked at the credit card policy, and we kind of found out that, I just want to show you the red line copy of the credit card policy. There's 4 pages, and we had more red than we had black. We brought it up to date. This new credit card policy ensures that safekeeping and/or record-keeping of the policy are forthwith and brought in front of everybody as they become employees or need to use the credit cards. I look for a motion.
I move to approve the resolution to adopt the Charter Township of Oxford credit card policy, authorize the Township Clerk to certify and file the same.
Second?
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. I saw a hand go up for discussion.
Nope.
No question?
Nope.
Roll call?
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Item 13F, board members, yearly, we come around and we talk about chloriding our roads. This year, in front of you, you'll see the contract with the Road Commission of Oakland County. We're asking for 5 applications, but we have a caveat in there, just like Mr. Charles talked about some legislation. In the program, we may not, this may be less because we may be relegated to keeping 100 foot away from surface water and or 4 applications per year. So we're asking for 5, but it may go down. Anybody have any questions? Look for a motion.
I move that the Charter Township of Oxford contract with the Road Commission of Oakland County to provide chloride services for 2023 on all public gravel roads in the Charter Township of Oxford. Chloride costs should be paid 100% by the Charter Township of Oxford for 5 applications at the rate of $7.29, 0.0729 per foot per application. The cost for the chloride service to be expensed to road fund account 204-440-969.000 highway road maintenance contracts.
Second?
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Colvin. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
And Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. We'll get through these. That's item 13G, fire station number 3, well bids. Trustee Noel.
We went out for bids to further our expansion of that property north of town for fire station number 3. The committee consists of Chief Majestic, Mr. Sharp Engineering, and myself. We've got our bids back in. The 2 low bids, once we adjusted to make them alike bids, Ed Brickmeyer well drilling came in at $41,794. I move that we award the Oxford Fire Station number 3 fire protection well bid to Ed Brickmeyer well drilling at a base bid of $41,794. This $41,794 amounts to be paid from the American Rescue Plan Fund.
Second.
I have a motion by Trustee Noel, a second by Treasurer Ferrari. Questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
And Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 13I. We have Lieutenant Patterson back there, should he need any backup. But item I is the substation interview room upgrade quotation approval.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, where did I do?
H.
What the heck? Okay, H, I crossed it off already. Item H, approval of request for proposed cemetery wall reconstruction. And I'll get to the next one next. Board members, in front of you, several walls located in the Oxford Cemetery north side are in need of repairs in different varying of degrees. The cemetery committee is requesting approval to begin the reconstruction process. What the cemetery committee did was they listed by picture each wall in the cemetery that's crumbling or falling apart. And Curtis has the pictures if you'd like to see them. We put them in a priority listing of A, B, and C. And what we're doing tonight is asking our engineer Sharp to go out for some proposals for wall construction. Taking them all into consideration would give us the possibility of doing some this year as required. Some are falling down. They're really bad. And some just would be nice if we cleaned them up for the families of the deceased that are there. So are there any questions on this? Trustee Charles, you had your hand up?
I'm going to move.
Oh, go ahead.
I move to authorize the cemetery committee with the assistance of Sharp Engineering to solicit requests for proposals for wall reconstruction at the Oxford Township Cemetery.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Charles, a second by trustee Payne. What was I gonna, do we need a roll
Tough section, isn't
call
it?
for that?
You don't need it.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, hearing none, the motion carried. And before any work is done, we bring that back for approval. Now we can get to item I. Substation interview room upgrade quotation approval. Board members, back a few months ago, we came in and we found that our interview rooms in the sheriff's department substation were insufficient when taking interview recordings to court. We got a bid from the sheriff's company to do this work. We went out and a second bid was brought in, about $10,000 cheaper. But what we found through the Michigan, what is it, the MCOL? Come on up, Lieutenant Patterson, you haven't stood up today.
Take them down to the room.
Yes, I believe you're correct. I believe Sergeant Meza provided you with the information, and I don't know if you shared that with the board or not, but there's a legality to everything we do. Everything flows through, you know, the detective bureau there, and interviewing process. Everything we do, of course, needs to be and should be and has to be legal. There's legal requirements for doing these interviews, and if they're not to the letter of the law, we're done in the water. So what we found was as you know, Supervisor Curtis stated, the bid was quoted that he could do the product, but he couldn't fulfill the need. So the case cracker that we're going with is used throughout the whole entire Oakland County, and pretty much everybody's going to that. And what our hope is to be uniform with them also, and with technology is the way you know it goes. Hopefully with our Captain of Technical Services, we can, you know, expound on that and have it more user-friendly for everybody as long as being legal as well.
Okay. Are there any questions for Lieutenant Patterson? Come on, let's get him in that room and give him something.
How about a demonstration with the supervisor?
I've had that.
I move to approve the invoice from American Video Transfer Inc. dated February 21st, 2023, the amount of $24,550 to upgrade Oakland County Sheriff's Substation interview room. This $24,550 amount to expedite expense of police contracting fund 207-302-976.000 additions and improvements.
Second?
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
And Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
If anybody would like a demonstration, I know the board members haven't been in the Oxford Township substation in a while, unless you're hiding something from us. It's pretty unique. You walk down the halls, the lights come on if the interview room is on. The cameras are disguised as thermostats, all of the things that are required by MCOL. So if you'd like a tour, we can schedule that 8 to 5, 8 to 4 on the weekday. Okay? All right, thank you, Lieutenant, for coming tonight. Item 13J, capital improvement priority list. Oh, I need some water here. Board members, we approved the committee for capital improvements to go and take all of the inputs on anything that may be required of us capital expenditures to improve some of the things in the buildings, the grounds of the township. Many of these products were put in almost 15 years ago. Some have degraded to the point of causing safety. Some of them should be done, and some of them it would be nice to be done. And that's how the committee approved the capital improvement suggestions that were received. Now, I just heard, oh, Treasurer Farrar, you brought one up about this counter tonight. So we need to add that to this list.
Yeah, I was talking to Deputy Clerk McCullough, she had a good idea, like, with our mics, they're always live. Be nice to have mics where you just turn them off, we make a motion and turn it on.
See, these are the things that were never considered when we built this. And over the years, you're finding out that somebody might cough or sneeze and you're doing it in the mic and it's picked up, sent out live feed, then it gets on recordings. So we're taking these ideas and prioritizing them. And attached to in your package tonight, up on the board was a priority list, if you will, how the committee did it. For your information, and no action required at this time. Are there any questions? We still take capital improvement suggestions if you make them. Submit them to Danielle, and we'll get them on the list. Okay, seeing no questions, item 13K. Whoa, what is this? Approval of request for approval for township parking lot improvements. Board members, the parking lot was put in approximately 15 years ago. Since we've added the parking lot down to the sheriff's substation, many of you walk in here every night, you see the cracks are getting big. There's holes that are getting bigger. The striping is missing. The arrows are bad at the end. We're missing a stop sign before the safety path. So these improvements, we'd like to go out to bid and have Engineer Sharp solicit those requests for proposals of the parking lot. In your packet, you'll see that he did a brief estimate, if you will, cost estimate through the engineering world of $132,181. And the map that, oh, you just had it up there, the map would be in your packet that's circled in the green of the areas that we would consider for repairs. Yes?
We talked about this before, with the new pocket park coming in, maybe adding some more parking for folks who may want to come there and use the park with their little kids. So we got that park coming up right up front, maybe add 5-10 more spots.
Can we throw that in the bid, Jim? I mean, we don't have it in the estimate.
Take a little bit more effort because it'd have to be designed. This one's pretty straightforward as far as just a mill overlay, fix the cracks, that type of thing. You could put it in there, but I think it's going to take up a lot of, where the park is going in.
Or
it's going to take, there's not going to be a lot of room for additional parking. We can look at it though, Joe.
Just in case kids want to use it, I'd rather have people be able to go there and park their vehicle and use that little park.
it's a good point. We are using the park, we are using the safety path. Daily we see, even in the snowy weather, we see people parking out here, getting out, taking their strollers out, or their bikes out. And this is a 5-mile circle through Waterstone and into the village and back out here. So we could take a look at that.
Yeah, we can take a look at it.
Okay. Trustee Charles, you have a question?
Will this be ARPA eligible?
Well, that is up for debate. It is eligible for ARPA fund expenditure, correct, Attorney Ellis?
It's a governmental service expenditure on infrastructure, so yes, but it would be up to the ARPA committee to make that recommendation to the board.
Okay. And secondly, we have monies in our budget currently for some improvements, but after the fire alarm fiasco, we don't know how much we have left because we just finished it. So with that, I look for a motion.
I move to authorize the capital improvement committee with the assistance of Sharp Engineering to solicit requests for proposals for parking lot and driveway improvements at the Oxford Township Municipal Complex.
Second?
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Knoll. We're jumping on this rather quickly because we are entering heavy bid seasons for these asphalt companies and we want to get it done right away. So to that, roll call please, if there are no questions, I'm sorry. Roll call?
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes, and Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Okay, last one, item 13L, North Area Sanitary Sewer Special Assessment District easement acquisition. Board members, as you learned, we were working on acquiring an easement of some property on M24, the corner of Market Street, M24, highly traveled, highly utilized, and commercial property. We offered the landowner a certain amount of money. That's a helicopter, I thought it was a generator. We offered him money to one sewer tap in the beginning for $5,000. They know, they countered. We had it appraised, it came in at $5,001. $100. The counter offer was reduced by the applicant, or by the landowner, to $15,000 counter offer. For all of the reasons we spoke of, time is of the essence to put the sewer line in, going to court, paying his attorney bills, while all this is charged against the SAD and the sewer cost borne by the developers, the landowners, this money would be taken out of that fund. We would pay it up front, and then we would get it back out of the SAD when the bills are finalized out. So I look for a recommendation or motion.
I make a motion to offer the owner of the Oxford Promenade for the necessary sewer easement, an amount not to exceed $15,000.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. I see a question to my left. Clerk Wright?
Just to confirm the motion with our attorney.
Actually, I would recommend an amendment to accept the offer of $15,000. We're not actually making the offer. The property owner has made the offer to us of $15,000.
Okay, so we're going to vote this motion down. Roll call?
Clerk Wright? No. Supervisor Curtis?
No.
Treasurer Ferrari?
No.
Trustee Charles?
No.
Trustee Noel?
No.
Trustee Payne?
No.
And Trustee Colvin?
No.
There's a motion in the packet.
There is? Where's it at?
Page
It's
237
letter.
I'll pull it up on the board. We're looking for it. I didn't see it.
Probably confidential.
I move to accept the offer of $15,000 for the purchase of an easement from Oxford Promenade LLC for the purposes of construction and future maintenance of the township's north area sanitary sewer.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Okay, we had no items removed from the consent agenda for item 14. Second portion, number 15, public comment. Are there any members of the public that want to comment? Sure, come on up. State your name, you have 3 minutes to talk, and away we go.
Hi, my name's Janine Graham. I live at 821 Cross Circle in Waterstone. I realized that what I was coming here for was the conditional rezoning, and just to hear that. I realize that's been going back now to the Planning Commission. One thing I wanted to note is that the conditional zoning, I want to thank Trustee Noel for his direction for that developer to process that conditional rezoning. So I don't know what the second condition is, but that'll be interesting to see what that is. I know that my neighbors and I are concerned about the density of that particular project. I realize that we're not talking about the planning at this point, but I do want to bring that up right now. There are 2 parcels. One is north of Market Street, the other is south. The south does touch onto, it's closer obviously to Waterstone Lake.
Yes.
And the density there is very concerning to all of us. Additionally, there is a pathway there that I believe Independence Village may have put in, but has been there for quite some time. When talking to our other neighbors, it's something that, as long as they've been here 20 years, it's been there. And so we would like to see that continue and be grandfathered in and not be removed if that were to if we were to go forward with the build. Additionally, the runoff that they are listing is acceptable to go into Waterstone Lake. To me, is not acceptable. And the Manners of, Manners of Westlake have a system that they used that for stormwater treatment chamber that I'd like to be considered for that when the planning does come up. But that's basically what I wanted to kind of reiterate and just make sure we're addressing those concerns. And then in terms of the single waste hauler, I had a question in regards to, was community disposal considered at all with them? We currently have them in our HOA. They've been wonderful, and we've had them for about 3 years. And I know they're a smaller, company compared to at least two of the ones that you listed, but their costs and rates and their team, they're great. So I would highly recommend them if you haven't considered them yet. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the community would like to discuss public comment at this time? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Greg Graham. I also live in Waterstone on the lake. My wife just mentioned some of the concerns we have relative to the density, so I won't speak into that. And I know it's got to go into other planning procedures to figure out what the actual architecture will end up looking like. But I think what was proposed is, especially on the smaller parcel on the water side, is pretty much just overkill in my mind. Because if we're going to come up Market Street from 24, as soon as you crest the hill, that's what you see. And it doesn't, at least in the architectural renderings, it doesn't match anything that's in Waterstone currently. I know there are condominiums and multi-family homes in that regard, but nothing with this style of home, almost like the old row houses that you would have in some of the old New England communities or things. So I just wanted to make a point that I think that it's a drastic change from the standard protocol of the design of the homes now. So I just wanted to bring that forth and make sure that it's considered when we do get to that point of the project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to address the board?
Hi, my name is Alexandra Massey. I actually live in Waterstone as well. I came for 13A as well. So the parcel that's on the south side, closer to Waterstone Lake, that is actually my neighbor. The back side of my house and the side is all windows, so right now you look out and you see, the wooded area, we see deer, and that's all I would see, would be like apartments, basically. I do worry about the sewer runoff. I have 3 kids, they're 7, 5, and 3. I don't like the idea of them literally going into the water where you have runoff coming directly from the end. I worry about privacy. You're not talking 2 homes that match the cohesiveness of the rest of the community. You're talking about X amount of families moving in, and I don't like the idea of my kids being in the backyard. And if I can see, if I can see you, you can see me. And I know we're not talking about any of that right now. I know this is being sent for debate elsewhere, but moving forward, what does that mean as far as dates to come back and express further concerns that way? Do you guys potentially
We'll try and
know?
address those comments in the commissioner's comments. We can't have a dialogue.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's why I'm writing over here. So we can get 'em.
But yeah, really those are kind of my biggest concerns. We moved in here 4 years ago, and we moved for the nature, the style of the community, the waterfront access, and I just, if I wanted to live across from apartments, I wouldn't have moved where I did. And I feel like something like that being erected there just kind of devalues the value of our home, and I don't want to uproot my kids. Like, we just, you know, they've established themselves in the community and in the school district, and yeah, one of my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the community want to speak, public comment?
My name is Daniel Lemazny. I live at 621 East Lake Trail. I am directly adjacent to one of the parcels that is being proposed for rezoning and development. My biggest concern is, like my wife just mentioned, we moved here 4 years ago. We lived south of here in the Macomb area. We invested in Oakland County. We invested in Oxford specifically. Our home is a significant amount. We paid close to $700,000 for our home for lakefront access, to have that waterfront property, to enjoy that view, and to share that community with people that also have the same priorities as us. Putting in 45 units, it's not 45 units, it's 45 families that you're putting in, a whole neighborhood that is now directly across from us, and you're ripping out everything that we sought to invest in, and under the understanding when we bought the land that this was a commercial use that hasn't been developed in 20 years, and more than likely would either maintain somewhat of our privacy or not be developed. And I don't think that, and I speak on behalf of myself and my neighbors who I've spoken to in the community, our Waterstone community doesn't want this. We don't want that high density, especially next to another high density. I really hope the committee puts value in what we've already invested into our homes. You know, as my wife mentioned, you know, we continue to invest in our property taxes, which are $12,000 to live in that lakefront access. I, again, am not going to continue to invest that if we're getting stripped from our privacy and everything else that we currently have. You have the power of your vote, and I ask all of you to please come to my house, 621 East Lake Trail. I will gladly accept you guys to see the view that I see, to share a glimpse of what catastrophic could happen to our homes on that lakefront, and the investment that not only I have placed in this community, but also my entire neighborhood. Because if my $700,000 home goes down, everybody in my entire neighborhood trickles down because of that. So, sorry. I appreciate your guys' time. I thank you for just hearing us out. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Don Milosik. I live at 569 South Shore Drive. I live around the corner down the street from Dan and Alex. My wife and I moved here from Troy. We raised our two kids. They're grown now. We lived there for 25 years. I work in Sterling Heights. 9 mile drive. It's really nice. When our kids moved out, we felt we wanted to get out and find another community that had great amenities. We found Oxford. We looked at probably 40 homes we walked through in a variety of communities in this area. Waterstone, we kept on coming back to it. We absolutely love it. The green space, the open space, the golf, the water, you name it. It's got it all. There's not many communities around here that have that. The density that we're talking about with this development it's nothing like we have in that area. This developer is actually going to be profiting off of what we have already currently built. And I would just ask you to consider that when you look at them putting 27 units on the north side of Market Street. There's going to be 27 two-car garage doors lined up as you drive down that road. Way too dense. On the south side, as they were saying, 18 buildings, I think they want to put on a 2.6 acre parcel. Again, way too dense, privacy issues, water access issues. It's going to be an absolute nightmare for our community. It's not why we moved here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the community that want to speak, public comment? Okay, seeing none, move on to Board of Trustee comments. I have a bunch. So can I go first tonight? Thanks. First off, our next meeting is April 12th. It's going to be held at Lake Point Church on Drainer Road at 6:30 p.m. And we're going to notice it to the public. We're going to all show up at 6:30 and move forward. Secondly, happy birthday, Chief Matt. You tried to sneak out without anybody knowing that, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Board members, we've received several contracts for suppliers in the township. Some of the contracts haven't been reviewed since 2005? What was that last one? It was a ton of years. Anyway, it's gone up extremely. It's gone up appropriately with inflation, but it's above my board or my approval, and I'm not going to spread it out amongst the three of us. We have our Carlisle Workman, we have our IT Wright, and then consultants. Which one?
This is suppliers.
Oh, yeah, consultants. Oh, they supply us. Yeah, playing words. I'm gonna have to probably bring this back to the board, but in the past, we've sought out bids to justify the cost of our suppliers. I don't know if I need approval to send out for bid, just to show you where we're at, and then justify retaining the consultants we have? Or do I make this agenda item for April to get approval to go out to bid? Procedurally,
Procedurally, it's up to the contracts you have with your consultants regarding whether you need to go out to bid this year or not. So we need to review your contracts, but you can send it to send it to the board for consideration if it's a requirement under your existing contracts.
okay. So, right now, we have two contracts that are increased in price significantly. Should I bring those to the board next month and have them approve that, or tell me to go out and rebid them?
So if your contracts say allow for increases without board approval, you follow the contract. If your contracts state that you need board approval, you need to bring it back. So what we can do is review them and I can advise accordingly.
Okay, but currently, right now, times are catching up with us.
We're not allowed to talk to you
Yes, sure.
during board member comment.
During board member comments, they can talk to me, can't they?
Well, you're the chair, so you can call on them technically.
Yes, you can talk to me.
I thought we were supposed to have a
We were told we
conversation. I
We
thought
don't want to.
We're affecting cost savings
Yeah,
or abiding by contracts according to our bylaws. So if you suggest to me that we review these by going out to bid, I will do that.
I need to review them with Brittany, come back with a recommendation.
Okay, that's what I'll do.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just a comment, how are we operating currently? We're already past the first quarter of 2023.
We haven't been billed for the new contract hours yet because it takes effect
Good enough for me?
March 1st, I think it was, yeah. Yes. So I will do that. Brittany?
Sounds
I
good.
have them. Thirdly, we heard tonight from a citizen about a traffic study on M24. I'll take that assignment on. Traffic studies are not done in the winter by MDOT or Oakland County Road Commission, Road Commission of Oakland County. Their tire counters are tore up by the plows. Their machines are susceptible to the weather, so the spring is upon us. I will take that on to follow up on the traffic study on Lapeer Road. Secondly, we had some comments brought forward tonight. We did move the conditional rezoning back to the Planning Commission, where there will be a public hearing for these comments. Not knowing the completeness of what was offered in the change to that zoning, it'll be brought out for public hearing at that time. As far as water treatment, normally our engineer, when it gets down to site construction, the mentioned water treatment for the Westlake, the Manors of Westlake that was installed would probably be done. I know it's done every lake that we do developments around, but those items will all be discussed at the Planning Commission. Community disposal, John, you had 3 people bid, community didn't bid?
Let me get to those notes. No, community did not bid, to answer your direct question. The subject came up this afternoon, and I did a little research on that with our consultant. And what we found was, we went out on the mitten process, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a purchasing group that connects thousands of buyers from local Michigan government agencies and provides a bid notification system that gives vendors instant access to bids, RFPs, and quotes. That is a known system that's out to the general population of consultants. When we researched this, there was no evidence that this particular company and name was researching that or responded to any participation in that. We got on the internet and looked up the company's name, and the company doesn't participate in community-wide trash hauler services that we found. Now, we could be wrong, but again, this was late in the day. And just our consultant went in a preliminary investigation, and he found no records of his sources that an RFP has ever been submitted by them to do a community-wide service. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Thank you. That's about all I had on that, but we did investigate that concern that we might have had an oversight. I don't believe we had an oversight. It was all published to the public through the mitten system, as well as our contractor sent out quotes or RFPs to businesses that he's only done business with.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna start, since it is, was it Women's Day or Ladies' Day?
Women's Day.
Month?
Well, it is both.
Year.
It is both Women's Month and International Women's
It is
Day.
one. Start with Catherine. Catherine, do you have any comments?
I just want to thank members of the public service coming in and letting us know how they feel. Happy birthday, Chief. That's all.
Trustee Payne.
I think we did amazingly well for 461-page agenda. So, that's it. That's all I have. I won't be here next month.
That's right.
Okay.
That it?
Yeah.
Trustee Noel?
Make a long night short. We had a community event this morning, a breakfast at the Waterstone. We heard from Mr. Curtis and Joe Mandor, and some other leaders of our community, and the outlook for Oxford Township, the village, working together. It was a great gathering. A lot of people were there. There's a young man that took an award for 2023. You have to help me with this, Mr. CJ. Excuse me, Mr. Curtis. Can I ask CJ a question?
Leadership Award.
Leadership Award. Thank you. He has helped raise over $981,000 for the community in his work since starting in November of 2019. So I want to thank you for that. He was recognized. He got a nice little plaque to put on his office wall. He looks good. And it's his wife's birthday today. Thank you.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Board members, just an update with the rising investment rate. We changed around, with the board's approved the investment policy. We changed some different investments. From November 1st until today's date, for all the various township funds, we've earned $376,000 in interest.
Last month?
from November 1st till March 7th. So, I mean, general fund itself is up $100,000, police 60. I mean, just, this isn't gonna last forever, but this is a kind of a nice wave we've been on, so we're probably, I'm thinking by the mid-year, be up about $500,000 in just interest. That's all I have.
Clerk Wright. Just want to let the general public know, and also the board, that Pauline Trail is going to have a public input meeting on the 16th of March. And the purpose of that is to gather information, because we're trying to get some grants, and this is one of the steps that is required for us to qualify to try to get some monies. We operate on an $80,000 budget, so it's pretty tight for managing 16.9 miles. So if you can participate in that, it's at the Friendship Park from 5 o'clock to 6:30. That's in Orion Township, right on Baldwin Road, I believe it is. And if you can't, then there is a website too you can go to fill out the survey that's on there. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Trustee Charles, you saved the best for last.
Absolutely. Good way to give you your pop cans, your bottles, along with my friend over here who was with the Pollyant Trail, the Oxras and Youth Association is doing bottle drive, can drive, if you want to drop those things off over at the village police department. And then we take them over to Myers and cash them, and it adds to the cause that Mr. Wright was just discussing. So drop them off, we'll get rid of them for you. That's it.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Charles. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say
Nay.
yeah.